In a cold and indifferent city, a young mother cycles in the rain with her son strapped to her chest, fighting for every cent. But an unexpected gesture of compassion changes the course of their lives and ignites the hope that seemed extinguished. Now, between improbable ties and difficult choices, a family is born, forged not by blood, but by love and courage. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you are watching us from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you will hear in your life. Rain fell relentlessly on the streets of New York City that grey Thursday afternoon. Puddles formed quickly on the uneven sidewalks, and the city's chaotic traffic seemed even denser under the weight of the heavy sky. Among the slowly advancing cars, a lone figure pedaled with an almost desperate determination. It was Sarah, 24, her dark brown hair tied in a ponytail that had come undone in the rain, her face etched with an expression that mixed exhaustion and stubbornness. Strapped to her chest, wrapped in a worn-out blanket that no longer protected as much as it should, her son Gabriel, just 6 months old, let out a faint cry that was lost in the city's noise. The bicycle Sarah was riding had seen better days. The tires were bald, the handlebars bent from so many last-second swerves, and the torn seat left the inner foam exposed, but it was all she had. On the back rack, secured with makeshift straps, a red thermal bag from the pizzeria where she worked swayed with every pothole she tried to avoid. Inside, 3 still hot pizzas were waiting to reach their destination. 3 deliveries that represented the money for dinner, for formula, for the diapers that were running out. Sarah had nowhere to go back to but a tiny room in a boarding house in Queens. She had no family, no friends, no support system. She had grown up in the foster care system, bouncing from one group home to another, always invisible, always forgotten. When she turned 18, she was put out on the street with a backpack and the vague promise that life would be what she made of it. And Sarah had tried to study at night, tried to work during the day, tried to build something solid. But life had other plans. She met a guy, believed his promises, and when she found out she was pregnant, he vanished like smoke. He left no address, no explanation, nothing but a baby growing inside her and an immense emptiness in her chest. Since then, Sarah had lived one day at a time. She would wake up before sunrise, feed Gabriel, drop him off at a community daycare that operated in a church basement, and work from 8 in the morning until 11 at night at Mario's Pizzeria, a second-generation Italian-American who paid little and demanded much. When Gabriel turned 6 months old and her spot at the daycare was gone, Sarah had no choice but to take him with her on deliveries. Mario complained, said it was against the rules, that she was slowing down the service. But Sarah begged, promised to be faster, promised not to cause any trouble. And so for the past 3 weeks she had been pedaling through the city with her son strapped to her chest, defying exhaustion, the cold, the rain, and the indifference of New York. At that moment, as the rain soaked everything, and Gabriel cried softly against her racing heart, Sarah felt she was at her limit. Her legs trembled from pedaling, her vision blurred from the water running down her forehead, and fear followed her like a shadow. Fear of falling, fear of hurting her son, fear of not being able to finish the deliveries and getting fired, fear of not having anything to eat tomorrow. The first delivery was at a commercial building in Midtown. Sarah leaned her bike against the wall, adjusted the blanket over Gabriel, and ran to the doorman, who barely looked at her as he took the pizza. No tip. Not even a thank you. Just the silent contempt of someone who saw her as just another one of the city's problems. Sarah went back to her bike, took a deep breath, and headed for the second delivery. The route took her down Park Avenue, where the enormous buildings seemed to touch the heavy clouds. There, among hurried businessmen and students with colorful umbrellas, Sarah felt even smaller. She didn't belong in that world. She never would. The second delivery was quick, a penthouse apartment. A man in a suit who paid with a card and closed the door before she could even thank him. Sarah went down the service stairs with Gabriel growing more restless, feeling the cold seep through her clothes. The third and final delivery was in a wealthy residential neighborhood in Westchester, far from the city center. Sarah pedaled for nearly 40 minutes under the relentless rain. The streets grew wider, the houses more spacious, the walls higher. She knew she didn't belong there, but she had no choice. The pizza had to arrive hot, the customer had to be satisfied, and she needed the money. It was on a corner in that quiet neighborhood that everything changed. Sarah was trying to cross the street when a car honked loudly, startling her. She swerved sharply. The front wheel of the bike slipped on a puddle of oil mixed with water, and for one terrible second, Sarah felt herself falling. Her body tilted to the side. The weight of the thermal bag pulled her down, and everything seemed to happen in slow motion. But her mother's instinct was faster than her fear. She threw her body to the other side, managing to balance the bike at the last moment, but the jolt made her stop on the curb, breathless, her heart pounding, and her trembling hands gripping the handlebars. Gabriel, awakened by the scare, began to cry. It was no longer a faint whimper. It was a loud, desperate cry, the cry of someone who was cold, hungry, and uncomfortable. Sarah tried to calm him, rocking her body, whispering soft words, but her own tears began to fall. She was exhausted. She was at the end of her rope. And for the first time that day, she allowed herself to feel the overwhelming urge to give up. That's when a child's voice cut through the rain. "Dad, stop the car. You have to help her." Sarah lifted her face and saw a boy of about 7 looking out the back window of a shiny black sedan that had stopped a few yards ahead. The boy's eyes were wide, his hand pressed against the glass, and a look of genuine concern was on his face. Next to him, in the driver's seat, a serious-looking man watched the scene in the rearview mirror. The boy insisted, his voice loud and urgent. "Dad, she almost fell. She has a baby with her. We have to help." The man hesitated. Sarah could see it, in the way he gripped the steering wheel, in the way he looked ahead, as if he wanted to just drive on and pretend he hadn't seen anything. But the boy didn't give up. "Please, Dad, please." Finally, the man sighed, turned off the engine, and opened the door. Sarah watched him get out of the car. He was tall, probably in his 40s, with dark hair showing a few grey streaks, wearing a dark blue dress shirt and elegant slacks. He opened a large umbrella and walked toward her with firm but cautious steps. The boy ran out after him, not caring about the rain. Sarah tried to stand up, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. She held Gabriel tightly, as if to protect him from everything, even this unexpected kindness. The man stopped in front of her, his dark eyes assessing the situation with a mix of concern and uncertainty. He opened his mouth, then closed it, as if searching for the right words. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice deep but gentle. Sarah nodded too quickly, her voice trembling. "I'm fine. I just slipped, but everything's okay. I need to finish my delivery." The boy came closer, his eyes fixed on Gabriel, who was still crying. He had a round face, freckles scattered across his nose, and an expression of pure empathy. "The baby's crying a lot. Is he cold?" Sarah swallowed hard, feeling shame creep up her neck. She didn't want to be seen like this. She didn't want to look weak, incapable, needy. But the truth was right there, exposed under the merciless rain. She was all of those things, and more. "He'll be okay. I just need to finish my job." The man frowned, looked at the heavy sky, at the old bike, at the soaked thermal bag, and then back at Sarah. Something in his expression changed. Maybe it was compassion. Maybe it was the memory of something he too had once lost. "How many deliveries do you have left?" Sarah hesitated. "Just one." The man exchanged a look with his son, who nodded as if encouraging his father to do the right thing. Then the man took a deep breath. "Look, I don't usually do this, but you can't keep going like this, in the rain, with such a small baby. Let me help you. My house is nearby. You can get dry warm-up, and I'll pay for the pizza for the delivery. You don't have to keep pedaling in this storm." Sarah felt her chest tighten. It was tempting, very tempting, but she had learned early on not to trust free kindness. There was always a price. "You don't have to. I'll finish and—" "Ma'am, please," the man said with a firmness that wasn't authoritarian, but sincere. "Look, I know you don't know me, and I understand your hesitation, but my son made me stop because he saw you needed help, and he's right. It's not safe for you to continue like this. Come with us. Just to warm up, have something to eat, and then you can decide what to do. I promise nothing bad will happen." The boy took a step forward, his eyes big and pleading. "I swear we're nice. My dad is good. And you can trust us." Sarah looked at Gabriel, who was still crying, his skin cold to the touch, his lips slightly blue. She looked at the empty street, at the rain that wouldn't stop, at the bike that could barely handle another trip. And then, against all her instincts, against all the lessons life had taught her, she nodded. "Okay." The man seemed relieved. He picked up the bike, put it in the trunk of the car, carefully secured the thermal bag, and then helped Sarah into the back seat. The boy sat next to her, smiling shyly, and the man got back behind the wheel. The car's heater was on, and the contrast with the cold outside was so intense that Sarah's eyes stung. She held Gabriel close, whispering words of comfort, and slowly the baby's crying subsided. "What's your name?" the boy asked, his voice full of innocent curiosity. "Sarah. And this is Gabriel. I'm Leo, and that's my dad, Michael." Michael glanced in the rearview mirror and gave a brief nod before turning his eyes back to the road. The house wasn't far. It was an elegant two-story house on a tree-lined street, with a well-kept garden out front and a wrought-iron gate. Michael parked in the garage, and Leo was the first one out, running to the door and waving for Sarah to follow. Inside, the house was everything Sarah had never had. Spacious, clean, with comfortable furniture, and a decor that blended modernity with coziness. The walls were light, the paintings showed tranquil landscapes, and the smell of cleanliness hung in the air. Sarah felt out of place, as if she shouldn't be there, treading on the hardwood floor with her soaked, worn-out sneakers. Michael noticed her hesitation. "Make yourself at home, I'll get some towels. Leo, show her to the bathroom." Leo led Sarah down a hallway to a large, well-lit bathroom. There were soft towels hanging, a large mirror, and even a small wooden stool. Michael brought clean clothes, a pair of sweatpants, and a long-sleeved shirt that looked like they had belonged to someone else but were folded and smelled fresh. "Take a hot shower, it'll do you good, and then we'll talk about dinner." Sarah wanted to refuse, but the cold had seeped into her bones, and Gabriel needed to be changed. She locked the door, took off her wet clothes, and got into the shower with her son in her arms. The hot water felt like a blessing, washing away the dirt, the exhaustion, and some of the despair. Gabriel stopped crying, his little eyes closing in pure relief. Sarah held him carefully, letting the water warm him too, and for the first time in months she allowed herself to breathe. When she came out of the bathroom, dressed in the borrowed clothes and with Gabriel wrapped in a soft towel, Sarah found Leo waiting in the hallway. He smiled when he saw them. "Come on, we made food." In the kitchen, Michael was finishing plating rice, grilled chicken, and salad. Nothing elaborate, but it was a real meal. Sarah sat at the table with Gabriel in her lap, and when Michael placed the plate in front of her, she felt a lump in her throat. It had been so long since someone had cooked for her, so long since she had eaten without rushing, without fear, without guilt. "Eat up," Michael said, sitting on the other side of the table with Leo beside him. "We already had an early dinner, but I felt like eating again." Leo laughed. "Liar, Dad. You made food just for her." Michael gave an embarrassed smile, and Sarah couldn't help but smile too. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, while Gabriel slept peacefully in her arms. During dinner, Michael asked few questions, respecting her silence, but Leo was full of curiosity. "Gabriel is so tiny. How many months is he?" 6. "And you work on a bike with him?" Sarah nodded, not knowing how to explain her reality to a 7-year-old boy. But Leo didn't judge. He just looked at Gabriel with affection. "That must be hard, but you're really brave." Sarah felt her eyes well up with tears, but blinked them back quickly. After dinner, Michael showed Sarah to the guest room. It was simple but comfortable. A queen-sized bed with clean sheets, a closet, a nightstand with a lamp. He brought in a portable crib and set it up next to the bed. "You can sleep here tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out what you want to do." Sarah looked at the room, at the bed, at the crib. It was all so far from her reality that it felt like a dream. "I can't accept this. You've already done too much. Michael shook his head. It's not charity. It's just a place for you and your son to rest for a night. Nothing more. Sarah knew she should refuse, knew she should leave, go back to the boarding house, to the life she knew. But her exhaustion was greater than her reason. She nodded, thanked him quietly, and Michael left the room, closing the door gently. Sarah laid Gabriel in the crib. The baby slept deeply, his breathing calm, his little face relaxed. She watched him for long minutes, her chest filled with an emotion she couldn't name. Then she lay down on the bed, sinking into the soft mattress, and closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time, Sarah slept without fear. Chapter 2. Sarah woke up disoriented. For a few seconds, she didn't recognize the white ceiling above her, nor the faint scent of lavender coming from the sheets. Her body was relaxed in a way she had forgotten was possible. Then, like a flash, the memory of the previous night returned. The rain, the near fatal fall, the man and the boy, the welcoming house. She sat up too quickly, her heart racing, and looked at the crib beside the bed. Gabriel was sleeping peacefully, his cheeks rosy, his chest rising and falling in a serene rhythm. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. Sunlight streamed through the window, soft and golden. It must have been around 7 in the morning. She heard voices coming from the kitchen. Calm voices, a conversation between a father and son. She got up carefully, still wearing the borrowed clothes, and walked to the door. When she opened it, the smell of fresh coffee enveloped her. In the kitchen, Michael was making breakfast, while Leo, already in his school uniform, was eating toast with jelly and talking excitedly about a science project. When Michael noticed Sarah at the door, he gave a small smile. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" Sarah nodded, her voice still caught in her throat. "I did, thank you." Leo turned in his chair, his eyes shining. "Good morning, Sarah. Is Gabriel still sleeping?" "He is." Michael poured a cup of coffee and placed it on the table, along with bread, cheese, fruit, and yogurt. Sarah sat down, feeling awkward in the face of such abundance. She wasn't used to this. Breakfast for her was usually a piece of toast and butter when she had the money, or just strong black coffee to trick her stomach. "Help yourself," Michael said, noticing her hesitation. "We always have a big breakfast here." Leo spoke between bites. "My dad makes the best French toast. You have to try it." Sarah ate slowly, still in silence, while Michael finished packing Leo's backpack. The boy never stopped talking, asking questions about Gabriel, telling stories from school, showing her a drawing he had made the day before. It was a scene Sarah had only ever seen on television. A real family with a routine, with conversations, with a sense of ease. When Leo finished eating, Michael walked him to the door. "Let's go, champ. You have a math test today." Leo made a face but obeyed. Before leaving, he waved to Sarah. "Bye, Sarah. I hope you're still here when I get back." Sarah didn't know what to say. Michael left with his son, and for a few minutes the house was quiet. She took the opportunity to wash the dishes, tidy up the kitchen, to do something useful to repay, even in a small way, the kindness she had received. When Michael returned, he found her drying the plates. "You didn't have to do that." "I know, but I wanted to." Michael leaned against the counter, his arms crossed, watching her with an expression Sarah couldn't decipher. "Look, Sarah, I know you must feel uncomfortable here, and I get it. But you need help, that's obvious. So if you want, you can stay for a few more days until you can get yourself organized." Sarah stopped drying the plate, her hands trembling slightly. "I can't accept that. I've already taken advantage of your kindness too much." "It's not taking advantage, it's help. There's a difference." Sarah shook her head, her pride speaking louder than her reason. "I really appreciate it, but I have to go. I have to work. I have to pay my rent at the boarding house. I can't just stay here and live off your generosity." Michael sighed but didn't push. He knew Sarah was too proud to accept help easily, so he did the only thing he could. He took out his wallet and pulled out a few bills. "At least let me give you this. For the pizzas yesterday, and for the delivery you couldn't make." Sarah looked at the money. It was more than she made in 3 days of work. Much more. "This is too much." It's what you deserve." She reluctantly accepted the money, tucking it into the pocket of her borrowed pants. Then she went to the room, changed Gabriel, put on her own clothes, which Michael had washed and dried during the night, and got ready to leave. Michael drove her to the pizzeria in his car. During the ride, the silence between them was heavy with unsaid things. Sarah wanted to thank him in a way that did justice to what he had done, but the words seemed too small. Michael, for his part, wanted to insist that she stay, but he knew it would be no use. When they arrived in front of the pizzeria, Sarah got out of the car with Gabriel in her arms and her backpack on. Michael handed her a card with his phone number. "If you need anything, call me, seriously." Sarah took the card, looked at it for a moment, and then put it in her pocket. She mumbled a thank you, turned, and walked into the pizzeria. Mario was behind the counter, his expression grim. When he saw Sarah, he didn't smile. "You're late." "I'm sorry, Mario. I had a problem yesterday, but—" He cut her off, his voice harsh. "A problem? The problem is, you think you can work here with a baby strapped to your chest. You didn't finish your deliveries yesterday. The customer for the third pizza complained, said he waited over an hour. You made me lose a customer." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "I had a problem, but I can explain. I'll make up for it. I'll do all the deliveries today. Don't bother," Mario said, crossing his arms, his expression inflexible. "You're fired. Get your things and go." Sarah's world collapsed in that instant. She tried to argue, tried to plead, but Mario wouldn't listen. He handed her the pay for the days she'd worked, a paltry sum that would barely cover 2 weeks of expenses, and turned his back. Sarah left the pizzeria with her legs trembling, Gabriel starting to fuss with hunger. She sat on the curb, her head in her hands, trying not to fall apart. No job, no income, with a baby to feed and rent to pay. How was she going to survive? Sarah walked back to the boarding house, each step heavier than the last. When she got to the tiny room, she called home. She fed Gabriel with the little formula she had left, changed his diaper using the last one she had, and laid him down on the makeshift bed that was just a mattress on the floor. Gabriel slept, but Sarah couldn't. She stayed awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, calculating how much time she had before everything fell apart completely. The following days were a blur of desperation. Sarah tried to find another job. She went to diners, stores, supermarkets, but no one wanted to hire a single mother with a baby. Either the place didn't allow children, or there were no openings, or they simply looked at her with that silent contempt Sarah knew so well. She spent the money she had on formula, diapers, and food, but she knew it wouldn't last. The rent for the boarding house was late, and the landlady, Mrs. Miller, a woman in her 50s with a cigarette always lit between her fingers, had already knocked on her door 3 times demanding payment. It was on the 5th day, when Sarah had nothing left, that everything got worse. Gabriel woke up in the middle of the night crying in a way Sarah had never heard before. It was a sharp, desperate, pained cry. She picked him up and felt that he was hot, very hot. His skin was burning, his forehead wet with sweat, his breathing rapid and shallow. Sarah felt panic rise in her throat. She put wet cloths on his forehead, gave him water, tried to calm him, but nothing worked. Gabriel wouldn't stop crying, his little body trembling, his eyes half closed. Sarah took what little money she had, about $20, and ran to the 24-hour pharmacy on the corner. It was midnight, the streets were deserted, and the cold of the early morning made her shiver even more. At the pharmacy, she explained the symptoms to the clerk, who recommended a children's fever reducer. Sarah bought the cheapest one, ran back to the boarding house, and tried to give the liquid to Gabriel, but the baby refused, spitting it all out, his cries growing weaker. Sarah stayed up all night, holding Gabriel, singing softly, praying to whatever force was listening. When the sun rose, Gabriel was worse. The fever hadn't broken, his breathing was labored, and he barely had the strength to cry. Sarah knew she had to take him to the hospital, but she had no money for transportation, no health insurance, nothing. That's when Mrs. Miller knocked on the door. Sarah opened it, Gabriel sleeping heavily in her arms. Mrs. Miller looked at her with an expression that showed no pity, only impatience. "Sarah, the rent is over a week late. I need the money today. If you don't pay by noon, you'll have to leave." "Mrs. Miller, please." Sarah felt her voice break. "My son is sick. I need more time. Just a few more days. I promise I'll—" Mrs. Miller sighed, flicking cigarette ash into the hallway. "Look, Sarah, I've got bills to pay too. It's not personal, it's business. You have until noon. If you don't pay, I'll have to ask you to leave." And she turned her back, leaving Sarah standing in the doorway, holding her feverish son, feeling the ground disappear from under her feet. Sarah tried to think, tried to find a solution, but there was no way out. She had no job, no money, nowhere to go. She looked at Gabriel, his pale little face, his bluish lips, and felt like she was failing as a mother. She was failing to protect the only being she loved in the world. That's when she remembered the card. With trembling hands, Sarah searched her backpack and found the card Michael had given her. She looked at the numbers, hesitated, questioned if she should do it. But Gabriel whimpered softly, and Sarah had no choice. She picked up her son, put what little she had in her backpack, and left the boarding house. She didn't know Michael's exact address, but she vaguely remembered the street, the neighborhood, the front of the house. She started walking, asking people for directions, following her confused, desperate memory. Hours passed. Gabriel grew quieter and quieter, his breathing weaker and weaker. Sarah felt her legs ache, her vision blurred with exhaustion, but she couldn't stop. Finally, when the sun was high in the sky, Sarah recognized the street. Her heart raced. She walked faster, almost running, until she saw the house. Michael's house. With the last ounce of strength she had, Sarah approached the gate, pressed the intercom, and waited. No one answered. She pressed it again and again and again. Gabriel was very quiet. Too quiet. Sarah felt her legs give way. She leaned against the gate, clutching Gabriel to her chest, feeling tears stream down her face uncontrollably. She had failed. She hadn't been able to protect her son. That's when Michael's voice came through the intercom. "Hello?" Sarah tried to speak, but her voice wouldn't come out. She tried again and only managed to sob. "Hello? Who is it?" Sarah gathered all the strength she had left and whispered, "Michael. It's me. Sarah." There was a brief silence. Then Michael's voice, now alarmed. "Sarah, are you out there?" "Yes, please." She heard the sound of the gate opening and then hurried footsteps. Michael appeared, running, still in his bathrobe, his eyes wide. When he saw Sarah, pale, trembling, with Gabriel in her arms, he stopped for a second, trying to process the scene. Then he ran to her. "My God, Sarah, what happened?" Sarah tried to explain, but the words came out jumbled, scrambled by exhaustion and despair. "He's sick. Fever. I didn't have—" Michael carefully took Gabriel into his arms, touched the baby's forehead, and felt the incredible heat. His expression changed immediately. He looked at Sarah, who was on the verge of collapsing. "We need to go to the hospital. Now." He held her by the arm, keeping her from falling, and led her to the car. He placed Gabriel in the back seat, with Sarah holding her son, and drove at high speed to the nearest hospital. In the emergency room, everything happened quickly. Michael spoke to the receptionist, explained it was an emergency, and within minutes, Gabriel was taken away by a nurse. Sarah tried to follow, but her legs gave out. Michael caught her before she fell, guided her to a chair, and stayed by her side, holding her hand. "It's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. I promise." Sarah looked at Michael, her eyes full of tears, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, she believed someone. She believed that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. The minutes dragged on like hours. Sarah sat in the waiting room chair, her hands trembling, her body exhausted. Michael never left her side. He brought her water, brought a snack from the hospital cafe, tried to get her to eat. She could barely swallow, but she accepted the water, trying to hydrate the body that had walked for hours under the sun. Finally, a doctor appeared. She was a middle-aged woman, her hair in a bun, her expression serious but kind. "Family of baby Gabriel?" Sarah. Shot up, Michael beside her. "I'm his mother. How is he?" The doctor looked at the chart, then at Sarah. He's stable now. We've diagnosed him with a severe respiratory infection. The high fever was a result of the infection. He'll need to be admitted for a few days for antibiotic treatment and monitoring. But you got here in time. A few more hours and the situation could have been much more serious. Sarah felt her legs weaken with relief. Michael held her and she let him. She let someone support her for the first time in her life. Can. I see him. Yes, he's sleeping now, but you can stay with him. The doctor led Sarah to a small room where Gabriel lay in a hospital crib, connected to a few machines, but breathing better. Sarah approached, touched his tiny hand, and the tears finally fell uncontrollably. They were tears of fear, of relief, of exhaustion, of gratitude. Michael stood in the doorway, watching the scene. He saw the pain of this mother, the struggle she fought daily, and felt his chest tighten. He knew what it was to lose someone. He knew what it was to feel helpless. And in that moment, he made a silent promise. He would not let Sarah face this alone. When Sarah finally sat in the chair next to the crib, Michael came over and placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll take care of everything, the bills, the treatment. You don't have to worry about anything right now. Sarah looked at him, her eyes red and swollen. Why? Why are you doing this? Michael hesitated, searching for the right words. Because no one should have to go through this alone, and because my son taught me that we have to help. When we can. Sarah couldn't answer. She just held Michael's hand, squeezed it tightly, and whispered a thank you that came more from her heart than from her throat. That night, Sarah slept in the chair next to Gabriel. Michael stayed too, sitting in another chair, watching over them both, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt that she wasn't alone, that there was someone by her side, that there was hope. Chapter 3. The days in the hospital passed in a slow, anxious rhythm. Sarah never left Gabriel's side. She slept in the uncomfortable chair, next to his crib, woke at every different sigh from her son, and followed every medication, every checkup from the nurses. Michael came every day. He brought food, clean clothes, and words of comfort. Leo also appeared after school, with colorful drawings that he taped to the wall of the room, transforming the sterile hospital environment into something less cold. Gabriel responded well to the treatment. The fever broke on the second day. His breathing gradually returned to normal. Color returned to his cheeks, and by the fourth day he could already smile at Sarah when she sang softly to him. The doctors were pleased with his progress and confirmed that he would be discharged soon. Sarah knew she should be relieved. And she was. But along with the relief came a growing anxiety. What would happen when they left the hospital? She no longer had a place to live. She had no job. She had nothing. It was Michael who brought up the subject on the morning of the fifth day. He arrived at the room with fresh coffee and a warm bagel. Sarah accepted with a tired smile. The doctor said Gabriel can be discharged tomorrow. I know, Sarah murmured, looking at her son sleeping peacefully. Have you thought about what you're going to do? Sarah was silent for a moment. Then she let out the breath she had been holding. No, I don't know. Michael pulled up a chair and sat next to her. His voice was gentle, without judgment. Sarah, I know you're proud. I know you don't like to accept help, but you have to think about Gabriel. He needs a safe place, care, stability. I know that, Sarah felt her voice tremble, but I have nothing to offer him. I've failed as a mother. Michael shook his head firmly. You haven't failed. You fought. You did everything you could with what you had, but now you don't have to do it alone. Sarah looked at him, her eyes welling up. What are you saying? I'm saying that you and Gabriel can stay at my house, for as long as you need, no pressure, no strings attached, just until you can get back on your feet. Sarah felt her heart ache. It was too much generosity, far too much. Michael, I can't do that. I already owe you so much. You don't owe me anything, he interrupted, his voice firm but kind. Look, my house is too big for just me and Leo. There's plenty of space. And honestly, since you've been there, the house has felt different. It's more alive. Leo can't stop talking about you and Gabriel. He misses you. Sarah felt the tears stream down her face. She was tired of fighting, tired of pretending she could do it all by herself, and for the first time, she allowed herself to accept the outstretched hand. Okay, but just for a little while until I can find a job and a place to live. Michael smiled, relieved. Deal. The next day, Gabriel was discharged. Sarah dressed him in a new outfit Michael had bought, a light blue onesie with a little bear embroidered on the chest. Gabriel was stronger, his color was back, and he looked more like a healthy baby. Sarah held him carefully, thanked the doctors and nurses who had cared for him so lovingly, and left the hospital with Michael by her side. When they arrived at the house, Leo was waiting at the door, jumping with excitement. As soon as he saw Gabriel, his eyes lit up. He's okay. He's better. He is, Sarah smiled, the first time in days that the smile came naturally. Leo gently held Gabriel's tiny hand as if holding something precious. I made a drawing for him. Want to see? Of course. Leo ran inside and came back with a colorful piece of paper. It was a drawing of 4 people holding hands, a tall man, a woman, a boy, and a baby. Sarah felt her chest tighten as she looked at the image. Leo had drawn a family, the family he wished for. It's beautiful, Leo. I put it on the fridge, so everyone can see. Michael led Sarah to the guest room, which was now even more prepared. There were diapers, wipes, new clothes folded in the closet, and soft toys scattered around. Everything a baby could possibly need. I didn't know exactly what to buy, so I bought a little bit of everything. Sarah looked around, moved. You didn't have to. I know, but I wanted to. The first few days were an adjustment. Sarah would wake up early, help make breakfast, take care of Gabriel, and play with Leo. Gradually, she began to take on tasks around the house. She cooked, cleaned, organized. Not because Michael asked her to, but because she needed to give back in some way. She needed to feel useful. Michael worked from home most of the time. He was a financial consultant, spending hours on his computer analyzing spreadsheets and attending online meetings. But he always took breaks to talk with Sarah, to ask if she needed anything, to share a cup of coffee on the porch. Leo would come home from school full of stories. He talked about his friends, his teachers, the games at recess, and he always asked to hold Gabriel, to make the baby laugh, to show him his new toys. Sarah watched the interaction between the two with a full heart. Leo treated Gabriel like he was his little brother, with care, with affection, with genuine love. As the weeks went by, Sarah realized something was changing inside her. The house, which at first was just a temporary shelter, began to feel like a home. She found herself singing while she cooked, smiling for no apparent reason, feeling a lightness she hadn't known in years. Gabriel was thriving, gaining weight, developing. He could already sit up on his own, laughed out loud, and would reach his little arms out whenever he saw Sarah coming. One afternoon, while Sarah was folding laundry in the living room, Leo approached her with a serious expression. He stood there for a moment, just watching her. Sarah stopped what she was doing. Is everything okay, Leo? Leo bit his lower lip, hesitant. Then he spoke softly. Sarah, can I ask you a question? Of course. Are you going to leave? Sarah felt her heart clench. She knelt down to his level and held his small hands. Why are you asking that? Because you said you were only staying for a little while, and I don't want you to leave. I like having you here. I like having Gabriel here. It's like we're a real family. Sarah felt her eyes fill with tears. She pulled Leo into a tight hug. I like being here too, Leo. A lot. So can you stay? Forever? Sarah didn't know what to say. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise she would stay. But the fear of creating expectations, the fear of getting attached and then losing everything, held her back. So she just, Leo tighter and whispered, We'll see, okay? Leo nodded, but Sarah could feel his sadness, and that hurt more than she could have imagined. That night, after Leo was asleep and Gabriel was quiet in his crib, Sarah and Michael sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The silence between them was comfortable, but heavy with unsaid things. It was Michael who broke the silence. Leo asked me today if you're going to leave. Sarah sighed. He asked me the same thing. And what did you say? The truth. That I don't know. Michael was quiet for a moment, watching the stars in the night sky. Sarah, can I tell you something? Of course. Before you came, this house was quiet. Too quiet. Leo and I were living on autopilot. I worked, he went to school, we ate dinner in silence, watched TV, and went to sleep. It was like we were just existing, not living. Sarah listened intently. When she passed away, 3 years ago, it was like the life went out of the house with her. Leo was very young, but he felt her absence, and I didn't know how to fill. I didn't know how. That void. Michael paused, took a deep breath, and continued. But when you arrived, everything changed. The house filled with sounds, with laughter, with music, with life. Leo started being a kid again, and I started to feel like it was worth waking up every day. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. Michael, You don't have to say anything right now, he interrupted gently. I just wanted you to know, you and Gabriel aren't a burden, you're a gift. And if it were up to me, you could stay here for as long as you want, no deadline, no strings attached, just stay. Sarah felt the tears fall, but this time they were tears of pure emotion. She looked at Michael, at the man who had saved her son, who had opened his home, who had offered her a second chance without asking for anything in return. And for the first time, Sarah allowed herself to imagine a different future. A future where she wasn't alone, where Gabriel had a family, where she had a place to call home. Thank you, was all she could manage to say, but it was loaded with all the feelings she couldn't name. The days continued to pass. Sarah gained confidence. She started cooking more elaborate dishes, discovering she had a talent for desserts. Leo loved it when she made brownies, and Gabriel would already reach his little hands out when he saw the chocolatey spoon. Michael praised everything, always with that quiet smile that made Sarah's heart race without her quite understanding why. The conversations between Sarah and Michael grew deeper. They shared stories of their past, their fears, their dreams. Sarah talked about her childhood in foster care, about the feeling of never belonging anywhere, about Gabriel's father who had disappeared. Michael talked about the wife he had lost, about how hard it was to raise Leo alone, about the grief he still carried, but was learning to transform into gratitude for the moments they had. One night, Michael spoke about his wife in more detail. Her name was Claire. She was a literature professor. She loved books, strong coffee, and classical music. She was cheerful, intense, full of life. When Leo was born, she said it was the happiest day of her life. Sarah listened in silence, respecting the memory. She had a sudden health complication when Leo was 4. It was all so fast. I didn't even have time to process it. 1 minute she was there, smiling, making plans, and the next, she was gone. Michael discreetly wiped his eyes. It was really hard, for me and for Leo. But over time we learned to live with her absence, to honor her memory by carrying on. Sarah took his hand. She sounds incredible. She was, and she would have loved you. Sarah felt her chest tighten. It was the first time Michael had made a direct connection between his wife and her, and that meant something important. As time went on, Sarah realized her feelings for Michael were changing. It was no longer just gratitude. It was something deeper. She found herself eagerly waiting for him to come home, smiling when he praised her cooking, feeling her heart race when their hands accidentally touched. And she was scared, very scared. Scared of feeling something that wasn't reciprocated. Scared of ruining the harmony they had built. Scared of losing everything. But Michael was changing too. Sarah could see it in the glances he stole when he thought she wasn't looking. She could see it in the way he always found a reason to be near her. She could see it in the kindness that went beyond hospitality. One Sunday afternoon, while Gabriel was napping and Leo was at a friend's house, Sarah and Michael were in the kitchen making lunch together. They worked in sync as if they had been doing it for years. Sarah chopped vegetables. Michael seasoned the meat. Suddenly, Michael started to laugh. "What are you laughing at?" "Us," he replied. "It feels like we've been doing this for a lifetime." Sarah smiled. "It's true. It's strange how natural it all feels." "It's not strange." Michael stopped stirring the pot and looked at her. "It's perfect." Sarah's heart leaped. She looked at him, saw the sincerity in his eyes, and felt that something was about to change between them. Michael took a hesitant step toward her. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." Sarah held her breath. "You can tell me. I didn't plan this. I didn't expect it to happen. But it did, and I can't pretend I don't feel it anymore." He took a deep breath and continued. "I've fallen in love with you." Sarah felt the world stop. The words echoed in her mind, filling all the empty spaces she had carried for so long. "Michael, if you don't feel the same way, that's okay. I'll understand. And it won't change anything between us. But I had to tell you. I needed you to know." Sarah felt tears well up. She took a step toward him, her hands trembling. "I've fallen in love with you too." Michael smiled, a smile that lit up his entire face. He took her hands, lacing his fingers with hers. "Really?" "Really," Sarah laughed through her tears. "I was afraid to admit it. Afraid of messing everything up. Afraid you didn't feel the same." Michael pulled her close, wrapping her in a tight hug. Sarah rested her head on his chest, listening to his racing heartbeat, and for the first time in her life, she felt at home. Not in a physical house, but in a place inside someone's heart, a place where she belonged. They stayed like that for long minutes, just holding each other, feeling the connection that had grown between them. When they pulled apart, Michael held her face in his hands. "I want you to stay, not as a guest, but as part of this family. You and Gabriel." Sarah nodded, the tears falling freely. "I want to stay." And they sealed that moment with a kiss. Gentle, full of promise, full of hope. It was the beginning of something new, something real, something they had both wished for without daring to believe it was possible. Chapter 4. The following days were magical. Sarah and Michael no longer hid their feelings. They exchanged knowing glances over breakfast, held hands when they thought no one was looking, and shared smiles that said more than 1,000 words. Leo noticed the change immediately, and his happiness was impossible to hide. He bounced around the house, sang loudly, and hugged them both tightly whenever he could. Gabriel also seemed to sense the positive energy. He laughed more, played more, and was growing more alert and curious every day. The house, which had once lived in a melancholic silence, now overflowed with life. Sarah would sing while she cooked, old songs she had learned as a child in group homes. Leo would run through the hallways with Gabriel in his arms, teaching the baby how to play. Michael would work in his office, but always with the door open, just to hear the sounds of the family that had formed around him. One Saturday morning, while Michael took Leo to his soccer game, Sarah took the opportunity to tidy up. Gabriel was in his playpen in the living room, busy with colorful blocks, and Sarah decided to clean Michael's office, a task he always did himself, but that she wanted to help with. She dusted the furniture, organized the books on the shelf, and it was then, as she moved a stack of papers, that a framed photo fell to the floor. Sarah bent down to pick it up, and when she looked at the image, her heart stopped. It was a photo of a beautiful woman with wavy brown hair and a radiant smile, holding a small baby in her arms. She was sitting in a coffee shop, a cappuccino on the table in front of her. Sarah knew that face. She knew that smile. She knew that coffee shop. The memories came flooding back. 5 years ago, Sarah had worked as a busser at a small coffee shop in Midtown Manhattan. It was her first steady job after leaving the last group. Home? She cleaned tables, washed dishes, served water. She was invisible to most of the customers, but there was one woman who always noticed her. An elegant woman with a kind smile who came in every Thursday afternoon, ordered a cappuccino with cinnamon, and would sit for an hour reading thick books or grading papers. Claire. Sarah remembered her. She remembered because Claire was different. She always said good morning, always said thank you, always left a tip, even when it wasn't necessary. And when Claire showed up one day with a baby in her arms, Sarah remembered feeling a pang of envy. Envy for this woman who had everything: beauty, education, a family, a smile that lit up the room. Sarah remembered serving Claire water that day, looking at the baby and remarking on how beautiful he was. Claire had smiled and said, Thank you, sweetie. He's my whole world." And now, holding that photo in her hands, Sarah understood everything. That woman was Michael's wife. That baby was Leo. And she, Sarah, had crossed their path years ago, never knowing that one day she would be here in this house, loving this man, caring for this boy. The tears began to fall uncontrollably. They weren't tears of sadness, but of something Sarah couldn't explain. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring her here, as if Claire, somehow, had planted a seed of kindness in Sarah's heart years ago, and now that seed had blossomed into something greater. Sarah heard the front door open. Michael and Leo were back. She quickly wiped her tears, but was still holding the photo when Michael walked into the office. He stopped when he saw her, noticed the photo in her hands, and his expression changed. "Sarah, is everything okay?" Sarah looked at him, her eyes still shining. "Michael, I need to tell you something." He came closer, concerned. "What is it?" Sarah took a deep breath and showed him the photo. "I knew her, not personally, but I used to work at a coffee shop she always went to. About 5 years ago, I remember her. I remember seeing you and Leo when he was a baby." Michael took the photo, looked at the image, and then back at Sarah, processing the information. "You worked at the Daily Grind?" "Yes, it was my first job." Michael let out a disbelieving laugh. "Claire loved that place. She went there every week, said it was the only place she could get any work done in peace." Sarah nodded, the tears returning. "She was always kind to me, always. I was invisible to everyone else, but she always saw me, always said thank you, always smiled." Michael sat down in his chair, still processing the coincidence. "This is unbelievable." "I know." Sarah sat beside him. "It feels like fate, doesn't it?" Michael looked at her, his eyes full of emotion. "Claire always said the universe had a way of bringing the right people together at the right time. I never really believed in it, but now you do." "Now I do," he said, taking her hand. "Maybe she saw you, felt something, and planted a seed of kindness that brought you here. To us." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. "I think she would approve of us together." Michael kissed the top of her head. "I'm sure she would." That afternoon, Sarah and Michael told the story to Leo, showing him the photo, explaining the unlikely connection that bound them. Leo was fascinated. He held the photo carefully, looked at the mother he had lost, and then looked at Sarah. "So you knew my mum?" "I did. She was wonderful." Leo smiled, a sad but grateful smile. "I think she sent you to us." Sarah felt her heart swell. "Maybe she did." Leo hugged Sarah tightly. "I want you to be my mum now, can you?" Sarah felt the tears stream down her face. She looked at Michael, who nodded with a smile, and then she hugged Leo back. "I would love to be your mum, Leo." Leo pulled away, his eyes shining with happiness, and ran to his room. He came back seconds later with the drawing he had made weeks ago, the drawing of the family. He showed it to Sarah. "See, I already drew it. Me, Dad, you, and Gabriel. We were already a family in my heart." Sarah took the drawing, looked at the 4 stick figures holding hands, and felt that this was the most important moment of her life. She had spent years feeling invisible, unwanted, alone. But now, looking at Michael, at Leo, at Gabriel sleeping in his playpen, she finally understood what it meant to belong. The following weeks were pure bliss. Sarah made her place in the house official, not as a guest but as part of the family. She and Michael talked about the future, about plans, about dreams. He suggested she go back to school to pursue her old dreams. Sarah, who had always wanted to be a teacher but never had the chance, felt hope rekindle. Michael promised to help her, to support her every step of the way. Gabriel was growing fast. He could already stand up holding onto furniture, was babbling a few syllables, and recognized everyone around him. Leo was the most loving, big brother any child could wish for. He taught Gabriel how to play, shared his toys, and protected the baby as if he were a treasure. The household routine settled in naturally. Sarah would wake up early, make breakfast, take Leo to school, care for Gabriel, study online in her free moments, cook, and manage the house. But it wasn't a burden. It was a joy. Every task was done with love, with purpose, with the certainty that she was building something solid. Michael worked, but he always made time for the family. Dinners at the table became sacred. They talked, laughed, and shared the day's events. Weekends were for trips to the park, movies, and afternoons of board games. It was a simple life, but it was everything Sarah had ever wanted. One evening, after Leo and Gabriel were asleep, Sarah and Michael were on the porch, watching the city lights in the distance. The silence between them was comfortable, filled only by the distant sound of traffic and the chirping of crickets. Sarah broke the silence. "You know, a few months ago, I was pedaling in the rain with no hope, no future, nothing. And today I'm here. With you, with Leo, with a family." Michael took her hand. "Life is funny like that. Sometimes the storm brings out the sun." Sarah smiled. "I used to be afraid of being happy, afraid of getting attached and losing everything again. And now I've learned that it's worth the risk, because even if it all ends one day, I will have lived, I will have loved, I will have belonged somewhere." Michael pulled her closer. "Nothing is going to end, Sarah. I promise. We built this together, and we're going to protect it together." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder, feeling peace wash over every cell in her body. "I love you, Michael. I love you too." And they stayed there, holding each other, under the starry New York sky, knowing they had found in each other something they had both been searching for a long time: a home, a family, a true love. The months passed, and life continued its natural dance. Gabriel turned one and took his first steps. Sarah didn't miss the moment. She filmed it all, shared it with Michael, and the three of them, Sarah, Michael, and Leo, cheered for Gabriel as if he had conquered the world. And for them he had. Leo was growing up too, more mature, more confident, happier. He called Sarah Mom without hesitation, without guilt, without fear of betraying the memory of his biological mother. Because he understood, even as a child, that love doesn't replace. Love multiplies. Sarah went back to school. She got a scholarship for an online education program. It was hard to balance her studies with caring for the house and the children, but she was determined. And Michael was by her side, always encouraging, always believing in her. One Sunday afternoon, the family was gathered in the living room. Gabriel was playing with blocks, Leo was drawing, Sarah was studying on the couch, and Michael was reading a book. It was a simple, everyday scene, but it was charged with meaning. Suddenly, Leo stopped drawing and looked at everyone. "You guys know I'm the luckiest kid in the world," Sarah smiled. "Why is that, sweetie?" "Because I have two dads, one here and one in heaven, and I have two moms, one who taught me to be strong and one who taught me to be happy. And I even have a little brother who's the funniest person in the universe." Michael cleared his throat, emotional. "You're a special boy, Leo." "I know," Leo smiled, "and we're a special family too." Sarah felt tears well up. She looked at Michael, who also had misty eyes. Then she opened her arms, calling everyone for a group hug. Michael and Leo came closer. Gabriel crawled over to them, and the four of them hugged in the middle of the living room. It was a hug that sealed everything, that confirmed everything, that celebrated everything. Sarah, the young mother who had pedaled through the rain without hope, was now embraced by her family, the family that fate had woven with unlikely threads but with a true and unshakable love. That night, after everyone was asleep, Sarah went back to the porch alone. She looked up at the sky, at the brightly shining stars, and whispered a thank you. She thanked the storm that had brought her here. She thanked Michael and Leo. She thanked Gabriel. She thanked Claire, who, without knowing it, had planted a seed of kindness that blossomed into love. And then Sarah understood. Life isn't made of predictable destinies. It's made of unlikely encounters, of outstretched hands, of open hearts. It's made of storms that bring the sun. It's made of falls that turn into flights. Sarah had spent her whole life looking for a place to belong, and now, finally, she had found it. Not in an address, not in a physical house, but in the heart of a family that had chosen her as much as she had chosen them. And that night, under the New York stars, Sarah finally allowed herself to believe that she deserved this happiness, to believe that she was enough, to believe that she was home. The silence of the night was broken by Michael's voice, who had woken up and come looking for her. "Everything okay?" Sarah turned, smiling. "Everything's perfect." Michael came closer, wrapped his arms around her, and together they stood there, watching the city that had been the stage for so much struggle, but now represented a new beginning. "Thank you for stopping the car that day," Sarah whispered. Michael kissed her forehead. "Thank you for agreeing to come in." And there, in that embrace, Sarah knew she had found not just a home, but a purpose. She was no longer the invisible girl from the foster homes. She was Sarah, Gabriel's mother, Leo's stepmother, Michael's partner. She was loved, she was seen, she was important. The storm had passed, and in its place, a garden had bloomed, a garden where love grew strong, where hope never died, where family was the root that supported everything. Sarah was finally home. And this home didn't have walls. It had hugs, it had laughter, it had love, it had belonging. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into a life built together, a life where every morning was a celebration, where every dinner was a sacred moment, where every night was a renewed promise that no matter what came, they would be together. And when Sarah looked back at the young woman pedaling desperately in the rain, she no longer felt pain. She felt gratitude, because that storm had brought her here. That near-fatal fall had resulted in the greatest gift she could ever receive, a family. Gabriel grew up strong and healthy, always surrounded by love. Leo became a responsible and kind teenager who never forgot the lesson Sarah had taught him, that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. Michael and Sarah built a solid partnership based on respect, love, and companionship, and every time it rained, Sarah would look out the window and smile, because she knew that storms didn't come to destroy. They came to clear the path, to prepare the ground, to water the seeds that would one day blossom into something beautiful. Sarah's story is the story of so many people who struggle, who fall, who get back up, who persist. It's the story of those who don't give up, even when everything seems impossible. It's the story that love can arise in the most unlikely of places, that hope never dies, that an outstretched hand can change an entire life. And as Sarah, Michael, Leo, and Gabriel lived their days with love, laughter, and companionship, the city of New York continued its chaotic rush. But inside that house, in the heart of that family, there was peace, there was love, there was home. Sarah had learned the most important lesson of all, that it doesn't matter where you come from, what you've lost, or how many times you've fallen. What matters is that you keep trying, because somewhere there are people waiting to hug you. There is a home waiting to welcome you. There is a love waiting to find you. And when that happens, when you finally find your place in the world, you understand that every storm, every fall, every tear was worth it, because it brought you here, to where you were always meant to be. Sarah was home, and there was nowhere else in the world she would rather be.